A man named Martin Marinas, who's a disability lawyer, summed it up. He said their strategy is to isolate, which they did isolate Bernie, and not Bernie, Britney, and they kept her from her supports. And Americans are so isolated in front of their own individual TV. They're not encouraged to join unions.
Also, they're stuffed into working so many hours a week that they can't even be close to friends if and when they have them, communities if and when they have them. They can't be close to them in the ways that they want to because they don't simply have the time because they're so overworked. And constantly overworking creates an isolation in and of itself.
It sure does. And you're so wiped out as a person after the isolation. All you can do is sit dumbly in front of a television where products
you may not have the energy to nourish the social relationships on which you depend.
Because it takes
for your mental health.
It takes time to have a friend.
And work.
Marinas, a disability lawyer, summed up the strategy, which applies both to Britney Spears and to the American public. The strategy is to isolate, medicate, and liquidate the assets. So you isolate them, you medicate them, and you exploit them on the job and isolate them to the point where they don't realize it. There was a study by Putnam called Bowling Alone, which has been repeated many times, even to last year, where 1 out of 4 Americans has no one to talk to, even in the worst emergency, because people have been so isolated. Now, this is a really important thing because Britney taught us a political lesson, how to get out of our isolation. As long as she was isolated, she could be ruthlessly exploited. But when she went public on June 23rd and talked about her imprisonment, and with little hints on TikTok before that.
Well, her and her fans had been communicating.
They created a mass movement and a mass awareness of her enslavement.
Yeah.
And with that mass awareness, they created such publicity that Britney became informed of her rights. She heard from a different lawyer that she actually has the right to appeal her custodianship. And in spite of their efforts to silence her, she did, and she got out of it. And since she did, those hangers-on are quitting. So, for example, her manager this week...
like dominoes, they're starting.
Exactly. Her manager quit this week, and so did the advocate, Sam Ingham, who made $3 million off of her father for being her advocate, and he was supposed to be her legal advocate and never even informed her of her rights.
It's an old trick to pay off the person that you pretend is the advocate for those who you're exploiting. This has also happened with the Catholic Church, wherein the people that they hired, which they said, they said that the people they hired were there to assess any inappropriate behavior and to examine allegations of impropriety, predation, and pedophilia, sex abuse. Those people were then found not only to be paid off, but often in possession of child pornography. So the corruption runs into every corner and crevice.
Because they, too, were an unaccountable hierarchy.
Yeah, of male supremacy.
And one of the things that's been wrong in America from the beginning is the Constitution did have some checks and balances that were wonderful, and the idea of checks and balances is great. However, with that Constitution, only 6% of the public could vote, because you had to be white, you had to be male, and you had to have property.
Yeah, you had to own property.
Yeah, so that Native Americans didn't get to fully vote in every state until 1965.
Yeah.
So that doesn't look so democratic. Plus, because so many of them were slaveholders, so many 9 signers of the Constitution held slaves, including Washington and Jefferson, there was no check on money. So someone with money could buy the votes of others, which is where we end up with the best democracy money can buy. And where money that Britney earned was used to keep her enslaved.
I mean, it feels like, instead of just locking a woman in a tower and taking ownership and turning her into property and a slave, which is age old. Now we've added the faux feminist spin of actually having her work too and taking that money too. So it combines these different kinds of enslavement.
That's right. Sexual enslavement
And
and economic enslavement, which is these are very powerful tools. And Brittany was the victim of all of them.